Hey guys, Joe here of the Joe Madden Sports Podcast, joined this afternoon by Danielle Alvari, host of the LA CityCast. How's it going, Danielle?
Oh, it's so good. We were just talking, but I have lots of crazy yard work going on outside. So it's, joys of working from home.
That is always a good thing, though. That means the weather must be nice if they're doing
Yep.
yard work.
Yep, exactly. That's true.
Well, Danielle, I want to welcome you to the show. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. You have a fantastic show, the LA CityCast. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, of course. I'm so glad. Thank you for saying that. I host a show called the Los Angeles CityCast. It's sponsored by Bet River Sportsbook, and we talk about all of the LA sports teams. And I'm really fortunate, obviously, because not only do we have a bunch of them, we have almost two per sport here. We also have really, really good teams in Los Angeles. So I'm not having to struggle for content necessarily. So it's a lot of fun.
Now, Danielle, how did you get started in the business? Because this isn't a typical business for women to be in. We know we've been talking about this before, and we get a lot of people looking at it like, why is a woman in this industry? But we're opening up, right? There are so many more women in this industry now. How did you get your first role?
It's interesting. My first role with sports betting was actually with VSiN, which is the network I'm with now. So the Vegas Stats and Information Network, and they have been incredible. I actually thought it was interesting. I almost feel like I faced more backlash, or not backlash, but just a little bit more pushback when I was in the traditional sports space than I have seen actually in sports betting. I feel like a lot of people are very welcoming to sports betting for everybody. It's not a thing that's like, this is a guy's thing. I actually saw a survey the other day too. I forget where I was reading this, but that women are at least 50 to 60% of the daily bettors that they're seeing, at least from the survey that they took. So it wasn't something I saw myself going into. I'm one of those people who really likes my money, and I don't like to lose my money. But I think I thought that sports betting was, as it is, I mean, we know that you have to be about 52% if you're betting the standard juice to be successful at this. But I thought, oh, it's just like a slot machine in terms of like your chances of winning, but that's just not true. So as I started to host these sports betting shows and I was spending so much time with these incredible handicappers, then of course you start to get involved in it. You're doing it every day, all day. And I'm realizing, oh, this is what you do. You find angles, you find edges, and it's not necessarily so difficult to be able to actually be profitable the way it would be difficult to win at the slot machine. So sports betting has been really fun. And it's also taking sports a step further than we watch traditional sports shows and they're trying to figure out, oh, well, who do we think is going to win tonight, right? Like if we're watching football or college football and they're just like putting their helmets out of the team they think is going to win. But sports betting, we have to take it a step further. There's analysis, there's handicapping, because it's not who's going to win necessarily. It's by how many points, who's going to be ahead at the half, et cetera. So it just makes the game a lot more interesting.
Absolutely. And it's fun to be competitive, to bet with your friends against the books.
Yep.
Where did that competitive edge come from for you?
Competitive. It's interesting because I do think with sports betting, I do think I'm a very competitive person, but with sports betting, I think that it's us versus the book,
Yep.
right? Like I think it's bettors versus the book. So I'm not necessarily trying to beat the person next to me usually. I mean, if they start it, then I'll let them try. But yeah, like I actually just think it's us versus the book, which is also kind of fun because sports betting is so everybody's so helpful. If you post out on social media, here's what I'm thinking, what do you guys think? And everybody has an opinion and they'll pop in whether you want it or not, and let you know what their thoughts are on your bet. And so sometimes it's helpful, and it's just a really fun community actually that way. So I am a competitive person, but as far as sports betting, like I'm trying to beat the book.
Absolutely. Now, where did your passion for sports originally come from?
Oh, geez. Well, I played sports while growing up. I like actually lettered in 4 sports in high school and varsity because I just was so bored all the time. So I had to play multiple sports. And I just carried that with me kind of into the rest of my career. It was interesting because I played 4 sports in high school. I was doing track, I was doing swimming, cheerleading, and wrestling. And I decided I'm going to do cheerleading in college. So I went to UCLA. I was lucky enough to audition and make that team. So I was a cheerleader at UCLA. And I thought, well, how can I make my career sports? My dad's like, you should be a broadcaster. And I was like, they don't pay people to talk about sports. Yes, they do. I didn't think I was the kind of person that they would pay to talk about sports. And so I went out and bought a camera for myself and a little microphone. And I got out to UCLA football practice and started covering spring practice and made a demo reel. And then, did the small market thing, went to Wyoming, worked there for a year, almost died in a blizzard twice. It's worth it. But yeah, and then, just kind of hop myself around to different jobs, and it's just been really rewarding, the different kinds of things I've got to do in this field.
Absolutely. Now, do you remember the very first bet that you ever made?
Very first bet. I think it was a WNBA bet. I think
Okay.
it was. I got to VSiN, and it was around WNBA finals time. And it was the Aces and the Storm, maybe, which are some of the top teams. And I had no idea what I was doing. And I just was like, I'm going to go with, I don't even know. I think I went with the Aces, and they ended up losing to the Storm by like a lot. And that was the year that like Asia Wilson basically started her revenge story and is coming back for them there. But yeah, it was a WNBA championship game, I think.
Now, I know you cover the WNBA a lot. How are your LA teams doing? You've got the LA Sparks out there. How are they doing? Okay, not okay. I'm taking from that, not okay.
They are doing their best. They're looking a little bit better than last year. And the pieces are there, starting to kind of come together for the LA Sparks. They have Liz Cambage, who they added to their roster from the Las Vegas Aces, who should be an automatic bucket, or for some reason that hasn't really started to progress fully yet. The Sparks are one of the teams. I have about 3 teams out of the 12 WNBA teams that are just so feisty that I don't like having to lay a bunch of points against them. The Sparks are one of those teams because they will stay in it sometimes, but they're so volatile. It's kind of unfortunate, but I'm really looking forward to going to a Sparks game in person. I think that'll be a lot of fun. The LA Sparks, definitely not my favorite team to bet on right now, and definitely not a team I want to bet against either.
Okay, so who is your favorite team to bet on right now?
Oh my God, the Aces. The Las Vegas Aces are incredible. They're just kind of head and shoulders above the other teams in terms of their production. They added Becky Hammon as their head coach in this offseason, and she's done an incredible job. They started the season 9-1. She became WNBA Coach of the Month in her first month being a WNBA coach. So they have all these incredible pieces that are working really well. They do have a little bit of injury starting to creep into the scene for them, which is unfortunate because we are kind of worried about depth with them. But overall, the Aces are just head and shoulders above a lot of these teams. The Connecticut Sun are a close second. They finally gave them their second loss. They gave the Aces their second loss of the season last Thursday, which is nice because for a second there it was like, are the Aces just going to roll through this entire league? But yeah, so it's been a lot of fun. But the Aces are just like an automatic bucket.
Okay, good to know. I'll make note of that for sure. Now, tomorrow night, the NBA game is on. These finals are crazy. What are you thinking for this third game here?
Well, Joe, have you been enjoying the NBA finals this year? Because it's been a little bit of a mixed bag.
It has. I'm not liking the blowouts. I have to admit, I want competitive games. I want it to come down to the final buzzer.
Yeah, especially if we're betting on it, because the point spreads have been 3.5, 4 points if we're lucky. So for me, I actually haven't really been wanting to look at the point spreads, especially if you look at game 1 and game 2. I'd rather just bet money lines at this point of the team that I guess you think is going to win. Of course, if it's a little bit too juiced, not something I'm going to look at, but it's been really hard to even look at the point spreads because we've seen so many blowouts, and a lot of people are complaining like these NBA finals haven't been entertaining. I think that's a little unfair because I think the Eastern Conference, we got to see some really good series early on. We got to see Nets and Celtics, and obviously Celtics Bucks. The Heat one maybe wasn't as exciting. This Warriors one is not what we were expecting. We probably thought we were going to see the Sun here. So I do think that it's been a little unfortunate in terms of the entertainment value, but in terms of betting, it does seem like the zigzag is holding true for the Celtics right now. But it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. I think the Celtics are young and hungry. They want this more, but the Warriors are obviously veteran experienced. So it'll be interesting to see what's going to have to give here.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game. 3 tomorrow. It'll be interesting to see how the Warriors do on the road. We know they've had issues covering that spread, but they are the underdog coming in here. It'll be a good one. Any players that you're looking at for a big night?
I could see Draymond Green having a big night. People are giving him a hard time, and I could see him being integral. I think he's already been integral to the Warriors' success so far through this postseason. But it's interesting because neither of these teams, I think, have been completely dominant in terms of getting rebounds. When we look at points or player props, rather, I'd look for something like that, possibly with Draymond. And Jordan Poole has been incredible through this series. So, of course, I like to look a little bit farther down the list of players if I'm looking at something like props. And Klay Thompson, unfortunately, has been like my under go-to. As we know, he hasn't exactly found his rhythms yet. So under 3-pointers for him has been something I've been looking at, even under on his points prop. And then obviously the Celtics are a lot more difficult because they're a lot more diverse and they kind of get their points from a lot of different places. So they've been a little bit more difficult to kind of nail down.
Absolutely. Now, Danielle, with you being out in LA, which football team do you cheer for there? Gotta ask.
Okay. So to be fair, I did not grow up in an NFL family. We were very
Okay.
basketball. We were very much basketball family. So football was late for me, and I am from the Bay Area. But I would say that I cheer for the Rams. But it's funny because I think because I didn't grow up watching NFL closely, I actually end up cheering just like for players that went to UCLA, and I can
Okay.
actually enjoy a lot of the different teams. So I really like Justin Herbert on the Chargers. He's been a lot of fun to watch. The Rams are incredible. They just, obviously extended Aaron Donald, which I'm very grateful. I think they would be a lot less fun to watch if he wasn't out there. But I do think that LA is a Rams town, unfortunately, still for the Chargers.
Yeah. Yeah, very sad for the Chargers. I am a diehard Bolts fan. It doesn't feel like home for them. I know that. But UCLA, we've got a question here. What are your thoughts on them for the upcoming football season?
I haven't been particularly overwhelmed with joy with how Chip Kelly's program has looked so far. It seemed like last year was their year to sort of get it done with the player personnel that they had. Their drafting has gone a little bit, or excuse me, their recruiting has gone a little bit better this season, I would say. They've been a little bit more quiet about it. I think that's the part that Chip Kelly doesn't like as much. But that said, I think that they could surprise us this season for that reason. It is interesting because the Pac-12 is now saying for the championship game, it's going to be the highest winning percentage. They're not necessarily going to divide it by North and South. That doesn't take it doesn't take place this season, so it won't necessarily affect them this season. But it is interesting going forward to think about what that means, because we could end up seeing, fortunately, like a UCLA USC situation in a championship game in the future. So possibly exciting, but overall, I don't know. I haven't looked a lot at this team yet because, again, I haven't been overly overjoyed with how the coaching has gone, especially on the defensive side of things. So if they can shore that up this season, they'll be in a better spot.
Yeah, I can't wait for college football and regular football to kick off here in the fall. It's going to come in a blink, Danielle. But thank you so much for joining me today on the Joe Madden Sports Podcast. Can you tell everyone where they can follow you for all your social media content?
Yeah, they can follow me at Danielle Alvari. I think it's right there. And that's all my socials. And you can also find the Los Angeles CityCast wherever you listen to podcasts.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate your TikToks as well. Found them the other day. Those are a lot of fun. So
We'll have to do it together.
Absolutely. That would be fun. Keep crushing it in the market. You're absolutely dominating. You guys make sure you check out the Los Angeles City cast. It's fantastic. Danielle has so much information to give daily. Daily, right?
Thanks so much, Joe.
Daily.
Yeah, Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Danielle, keep killing it. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.